This is the 45th day of Donald Trump's war in Iran. The U.S. began a naval blockade of all Iranian ports from the southern coast to the Strait of Hormuz. Before this, of course, Iran was able to levy massive tolls and pick and choose which ships were allowed to pass. Now, Trump wants to put a stop to all traffic. The move will hurt Iran's economy by cutting off oil exports, but it'll also send global oil prices even higher than they are. On social media, the president threatened that any ships that come close to the blockade will be eliminated. Here's what he had to say about the move earlier.
We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen. And, you know, the amazing thing is we don't, can you believe this? We don't use the Strait. We don't need the ship.
If the deal is not reached by the end of the ceasefire, does your threat from before still stand?
Yeah, I don't want to comment on that, but it won't be pleasant for them. Let me put it that way.
Is it your anticipation, Mr. President, that other countries will assist in this effort to blockade Iran and those?
Yeah, other countries are going to also.
Which countries, sir?
We don't need other countries, frankly, but they've offered the services.
For fact's sake, today, NATO allies said they would not get involved in Trump's blockade. Of course, this is all happening because of this weekend's peace talks. What happened? They failed almost immediately. An Iranian leader said the U.S. did not gain the trust of its negotiators, while sources tell Axios that mediators are trying to revive those talks. But at the same time, officials tell the Wall Street Journal that the president is looking at resuming limited military strikes in Iran. So that 2-week ceasefire is supposed to expire 1 week from tomorrow. But with a naval blockade from the U.S. and continued Israeli attacks in Lebanon, it is hard to even say that there is anything that resembles a ceasefire going on right now. And here at home, oil is just under $100 a barrel. The average price of gas is $4.13 a gallon, and diesel is $5.65. That is 16 cents off the all-time high. And by the way, the Strait of Hormuz, we're not dependent on it, but we certainly use it. Just ask any American farmer who needs that fertilizer. With that, let's get smarter with the help of our lead-off panel tonight. Luke Broadwater is here, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist with the White House. He's a White House correspondent for the New York Times. Peter Baker, chief White House correspondent for the New York Times. And Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia and MS Now international affairs analyst. Luke, we turn to you first. The president's next big move is putting this blockade on top of a blockade. I have to tell you, it took me like 3 iterations to figure out what this even was. But how does the White House actually see this playing out? Because it hurts everybody.
Yeah, I think they're trying to put some pressure on Iran. It's in Donald Trump's view, if Iran can, lead this blockade, why can't the United States? I've heard some talk from the White House today that they can use the blockade to perhaps try to get some of these mines out of the strait. But I think it's important to remember the fact here that we haven't accomplished anything in this war. The fact that we were supposed to have blown up the Navy, but it seems the Navy is able to plant mines in the strait. The United States was supposed to have taken out all of the missile capacity. Clearly, the Iranians are still shooting missiles. The United States was supposed to have taken out the nuclear capacity. In fact, the nuclear capacity was contained under the deal with predecessor Barack Obama, which was torn up by Donald Trump. And Donald Trump also touted that this would be a war of regime change and that the protesters would rise up and take over the government. And that now he's backed off that as well. So it's really hard to see what's being accomplished in this war. Maybe something can be negotiated that the president can hold up as a win here at the end of the day. But as of right now, we have higher gas prices, and there don't seem to be any political victories for the White House from this war.
But Ambassador, the blockade specifically, the president thinks it's a good move. It's going to cause pain to both the U.S. and Iran. But hasn't Iran shown us time and again that they are willing to wait it out, even if it causes economic pain for them, all sorts of pain? They are willing to suffer. And I'm not complimenting it, but for their cause.
Well, it's going to cause pain for Iran, the United States, and the entire world almost. Let's remember this, that suddenly we are drawing in other countries that are suffering because of our war with Iran. Now, the Iranians did that when they started attacking countries in the region, and we said, what are you doing? This is outrageous. Now we're doing it. And the vice president just said, well, they're using economic terrorism against the world. Two can play that game. I just think that is a horrible framing for what we're seeking to do there. But Stephanie, to your point, of course, we don't know what the break point is. But so far, they've endured a lot. The regime is still in place. They've shown no signs of capitulation. They're trying to escalate the pressure. But this game of chicken, I'm not sure is one that we're going to be able to win.
Peter, now the president is claiming the same thing he's claimed for weeks. Some days he says we don't need our NATO allies, but today he said, yep, a whole bunch of other countries are going to come to our aid. Do you have any reporting that backs that up?
No, I haven't seen any reporting that backs that up. Not yet, at least. It may be his way of bluffing other countries into trying to get them to do it, maybe. But, look, he has been isolated from the beginning on this. And it goes back to that old saying, if you want somebody to be with you on the landing, you need to let them be with you on the takeoff. The NATO allies weren't consulted on this war in advance. They weren't asked their opinion, and they didn't buy into it. And therefore, they don't feel any commitment to coming to Trump's assistance. Now, they have some interest in it, obviously, because they also, like, as Ambassador McFaul just said, the rest of the world have a stake in what's happening. They're going to, the price of oil affects everybody. The lack of fertilizer could end up ruining crops that affect world food supplies. There's all sorts of consequences that will not stay within the boundaries of the Middle East. But so far, at least, the amount of aid that NATO allies have been willing to give the United States' war has been very limited, and that hasn't seemed to change.
Luke, let's talk about this weekend. The negotiations basically ended immediately. And as soon as they ended, Vice President J.D. Vance and the whole negotiating team got on a plane and went home straight away. Now the president is basically saying, oh, things may be restarting in terms of peace negotiations. Again, any evidence of that? And if so, will J.D. Vance be the person to lead that?
I'm struck by something that Donald Trump told the New York Times back in 2016 when he was complaining about Barack Obama's deal with the Iranians. And that is, he said the deal was bad because the U.S. hadn't stormed out of the room at least 2 times before agreeing to it. His belief was that in negotiations, you need to enter into them and then get up and leave in order to drive a better deal. And Peter may have been in this meeting at the time, but some of our colleagues asked him, like, what didn't you like about that deal? And he couldn't point to the page in the deal that he thought was the mistake. So I'm not sure what he hopes to get out of these negotiations. J.D. Vance, while they were going on, Trump sort of downplayed them. He was at a UFC fight, and he said he didn't really care if they reached a deal or not. And so, they flew over there. Nothing was accomplished. They flew back. It's hard to really see this going anywhere or making any headway. That said, we do have some reporting up tonight that they're talking about a length of a moratorium on the Iranians developing a nuclear program, and there's a sort of a debate whether it's 5 years or 20 years. So there are some terms being exchanged, but we'll have to wait and see.
Let's talk about what happened Saturday night, Ambassador, because as Vice President Vance was announcing that the peace talks failed, the president, to Luke's point, was at a UFC fight with our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. What do other countries and their leaders think when they see that split screen during such a crucial moment? I get world leaders. I was thinking military mothers Saturday night. Military mothers watching the president at a UFC fight while a war's going on.
Well, I'd say 2 things about that. First, President Trump does so many crazy things and says so many other crazy things. You just talked about 3 or 4 of them in the intro, like getting in a fight with the Pope, that I don't think the rest of the world is surprised by anything he does. I do think we underestimate how damaging this is to our reputation around the world. We're so focused on us and a little bit focused on our allies. But think about how this looks in Indonesia or South Africa or Brazil. We're just tanking our international reputation. And the polling on this is crystal clear. You know who's really benefiting? The Chinese. They're going through the roof as we go in down and down and down. But the second thing I want to point out about that fight, the Secretary of State was at that fight. Oh, you know who else was at that fight? The National Security Advisor. And what I was wondering when I saw Secretary Rubio there, or National Security Advisor Rubio, why isn't he negotiating? He's the lead diplomat in the government right now. Maybe it's for political reasons. Maybe he doesn't want to be a part of it. Maybe I understand that. But it is a very striking thing that he set the vice president and then Witkoff and Kushner, the kind of sidekicks that show up at all negotiations. And I would just point out, I've followed their negotiating successes and failures with the Russians. They haven't accomplished anything in negotiating with Putin. So I'm not sure why they think they're going to accomplish something more in these set of negotiations.